The key content of today is to identify, discuss and define the current challenges in professional discussions about active housing. What do you identify as the main challenges under this umbrella called active housing that we face today?
The main challenge is to start to get the framework in how you define low energy buildings changed so that it has a much broader basis, so that we move away from the sort of historical focus which has been on saving heat consumption in buildings to a broader approach where, for example, daylighting and reducing electricity consumption to artificial lighting, etc., is an integrated part of the design process. And as soon as you open up for daylighting design as an energy parameter, it will have a considerable effect on building design in terms of which parameters designers and clients will start to look at in designing low energy buildings.
What do you believe are the best answers to these challenges and why?
The best answers are typically some what I would call very broad solutions where you have many different factors which support each other. So instead of having very narrow definitions of low energy design, you have some very broader definitions that take account of many different factors. So that would be heat savings, electricity savings, renewable energy production in buildings, and taking account of the internal environmental quality in buildings so that they're sort of nice buildings to live in. It's extremely important because of the fact that people spend most time inside buildings. But at the same time, we can look historically at it, we can see that there's been given much too much focus to reducing heat consumption in buildings and not enough focus on creating good internal environments in terms of daylighting, in terms of air quality. When you start saving heat and it creates worse indoor climate, worse daylighting conditions, and the effect is typically that one starts to use electricity in buildings to solve those problems, and typically that electricity consumption will be larger than the heat savings. So it can actually be, in a holistic approach, it can be total energy saving to start with the indoor environmental quality as the focus.
The energy challenge concerns the fact that buildings consume approximately 40% of all produced energy. To address climate change and reduce the global energy consumption, it is crucial to consider using renewable energy sources as part of the solution, also in terms of securing energy supply. How do you foresee that we best can confront the energy challenge in buildings in the future?
We're talking about traditional heat-saving technologies, we're talking about new electricity-saving technologies, we're talking about renewable energy production of thermal energy and electrical energy. We're looking at 3 or 4 factors that basically need to be addressed simultaneously. In terms of today's technology, it is realistic. In terms of building design and what the construction sector is able to produce at present, it needs very radical changes to the whole sector if it's going to be the norm rather than just the top 1 or 2% of buildings that get built at present.
The living factor challenge concerns the fact that we spend 90% of our time indoors, but less than 30% of the building mass contributes to or provides a healthy indoor climate. As humans, we need fresh air and daylight when we are indoors. It has a positive effect on our health and well-being as well as on our ability to learn. How do you foresee that we can confront the living factor challenge in buildings in the future?
One of the factors that we can see is very important is using daylighting in buildings and moving away from the traditional typology of very deep buildings with very low ceiling heights, where you're minimizing the surface area to save heat in buildings. We believe that if we can move to building types which are not as deep, have a greater ceiling height, have much better daylighting penetration, and are able to use natural ventilation, this will create automatically much improved internal environment in buildings and increase the living quality in our buildings, and at the same time produce energy savings.
What is active housing in your definition, and how do you believe it is relevant to the work that you and your organization carries out?
Active housing I see as a solution which has many facets. It's addressing the energy problems of buildings in a more holistic approach, where you're looking at energy savings, you're looking at energy production, and you're looking at the internal environmental quality of buildings at the same time. And in terms of our work as a research institution, we can see that it fits very nicely with the approaches that we work with as research projects, and it to a certain way reflects a lot of the aspects we've been working with for the last 5 or 10 years to widen the scope of energy saving in buildings and put more focus on daylighting in buildings.